to evacuate their home planet, two inquisitive Betelgeusians, Finzo and Vladio, traveled on an interstellar evacuation ship with their entire species for thousands of years, ultimately getting themselves excommunicated for asking too many heretical questions. After downloading their minds into freshly synthesized primate meat bodies, they were unceremoniously chucked into the nearest launch pod and blasted to Earth. Now, they reside in human bodies on their new planet, searching the human canon for worthy knowledge to send back to their overlords, and maybe make their stay here a little more bearable. These are the Betelgeusian Blasphemers.
Okay, do you want to start podcasting now?
Yeah, let's start podcasting right now.
Right now? Okay. You go first.
Welcome to episode number 5.
Episode number 5 already. And today we're going to be talking about The Righteous Mind, right?
Yeah, The Righteous Mind by Jonathan Haidt.
Cool. Is that how you say his last name?
That's how James says his last name. And I believe James.
I believe James too. Yeah, so I guess like the moral foundations thing, like how do you want to go about this? Like should we summarize it first?
Let's summarize it.
Okay.
So you read it more recently than I did. How would you summarize that book? Like what's it all about?
I mean, he's titled it like how good people are divided by like religion and politics and stuff. And basically I think he's saying that like people are intuitive animals rather than logical thinkers, or that they're both at the same time. And he uses this like really cool analogy of the rider and the elephant. So like the rider of the elephant is this like rational human mind, and the elephant is our emotive, intuitive animal mind. And I think like that's a really interesting analogy to like go through the whole moral foundations thing with, because he's saying that we sort of have these intuitive moral underpinnings about how we feel about stuff, and he's identified 6, although maybe there's more, and they are care, fairness, liberty, loyalty, authority, and sanctity. And there's also opposites of that. Do you remember what the opposites are?
Yeah, I have this list right here. So there's care versus harm, fairness versus cheating, loyalty versus betrayal, authority versus subversion, sanctity versus degradation, and liberty versus oppression. Right.
And I think the main thing that this book is saying is that these 6 foundations are kind of like taste buds, where he kind of compares it to different cuisines from around the world. So like different cultures, all people in different cultures have the same taste receptors, but like Asian food can be spicy, Mexican food can be spicy, and Indian food can be spicy. So like these different cultures have these sort of different ways of acting on the same receptor. So, you know, one culture can be acting on this sort of fairness receptor in a different way than another is, but it's all sort of acting on the same thing in different ways.
Yeah, like everybody has all 6 foundations, but different people, according to their culture, put more emphasis on some rather than others.
Right.
I think he said like specifically like American liberals put most of their emphasis on the care and harm foundation and sort of put a lot less on the other ones.
Yeah, and I think that's where a lot of people, I guess when I say people, I mean liberals, will have like a sticking point with it maybe, because, you know, if we're saying that liberals only care about care and oppression, then you're also kind of saying that conservatives are more broad-minded than liberals from a moral perspective.
Yeah, he keeps on saying that conservatives have like a more full like taste palette, or they taste with all 6 rather than just with one.
Yeah.
Not that one way is necessarily better than the other, but it's just an explanation of why people might look at the same problem in two different ways or have a different response to the same problem. Because it's actually due to their wiring, right? Their genetic makeup.
Exactly. Yeah, 50% of your genetics is determining what party or where you're going to fall on the political spectrum. Then the other 50% can sort of sway you in different ways. But I think that's like, you know, that's a huge amount for your genetics to play in like determining something like that you consider to be kind of this like thing that people come to, they grow up and they sort of question and reason and they decide what party they want to be. But then there's like 50% of that is just like pretty much predetermined.
It's an interesting finding.
And I think like the experiment where they were saying liberals were worse at predicting what the typical conservative thinks like than vice versa was really interesting. Because
they tried to get them to like mimic what their opposite would say, and the conservatives were better at mimicking the liberal opinion than liberals were at mimicking the conservative opinion.
Yeah, and I'm not too sure about that, whether it's now maybe this is just my perspective, but that the media and sort of the general public tends to talk in liberal terms, and that like maybe the conservatives had more exposure to like liberal think than the liberals have to conservative think. Potentially. Yeah.
So they go about judging these things based on a questionnaire that Jonathan Haidt created, where he had, I don't know how many, maybe like say 25 tiny moral dilemmas, like little stories that are a paragraph long. And then he would read the story and then ask if the person in the story had done anything morally wrong. And then based on people's responses, you could determine like what triggers their moral response, saying that nobody did anything wrong or that somebody did do something wrong. So you want to go through some examples of those?
Yeah. I actually was having a hard time finding some. So the only ones that I could get my hands on were the ones from the book, and that's it.
Same. I know. I remembered a couple from the book, and then I wrote down one of my own.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So the one that gets me from the book the most is the one that's like, so you're supposed to rate this of whether like it's morally wrong and sort of say why. And it's a man buys a fresh chicken from the store every Wednesday, takes it home, has sexual intercourse with it before fully cooking it and eating it. Like, did he do anything wrong?
I think he did.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I don't think he did. I
guess the point of these is to make it seem like for the average person to say yes, have a gut reaction, yes, that's wrong. But then when you ask them why is it wrong, they have a hard time explaining it. And I think he calls that moral dumbfounding.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I would say, yeah, he did something wrong. That's what my intuition tells me. That's what the elephant tells me.
Yeah.
Now I'm the writer trying to explain why. And I mean, it's a little bit difficult because there's no obvious victim, right? So it doesn't really violate like the Care Harm Foundation. This is an example that I think would trigger the sanctity degradation foundation, because basically the only thing he did wrong was degrade himself. Right? Yeah. There is no obvious victim in this. So
and maybe the chicken.
Well, the chicken's already been killed. I mean, you're not respecting the chicken's body if you think that that's important.
Yeah, I think you're degrading the chicken's body as well.
You're degrading the chicken's body. You're not respecting the fact that this chicken was like raised and killed so you could eat it.
Right.
And you're also degrading yourself in a way. So the question is it morally wrong to degrade yourself?
I think it's kind of similar to sorry, I'm going on a bit of a tangent with the chicken, the chicken flesh, but I think it's kind of the same as like someone ordering like a really nice steak at a restaurant that's like some organic beef or something, and then they order the really nice steak, they get it cooked nice, and then like they ask the waiter for ketchup, and it's like I kind of think those might like be on the same level for me, but
Yeah, that's similar. Or just like imagine you like ordered a really nice steak or something and then just threw it in the garbage.
yeah, I mean that's not helping anybody. At least like the guy who's having intercourse with the chicken is getting off.
Yeah, at least he's doing something.
Yeah, at least he's doing something with his life.
Yeah, so
Um,
if I try to explain why I think that's wrong, I would say that when you do something that degrades you, when you do something that feels like you're when you do something that just feels wrong, like disgusting, you get that disgust response. Even if there's no obvious victim to it, I think you can make the argument that that the entire society suffers because it's an action that if everybody in society did it, I think society would be worse off, right? Except
yeah,
one person can do it and nothing happens because the society is robust enough to handle one person doing something disgusting. Yet if everybody did it, you'd reach a critical mass of degradation where the whole society would just suffer because everybody was behaving that way.
hmm.
And that might be why we have these responses wired into us.
Maybe. I don't think he covered that in the book, but that's an interesting hypothesis. Like, so you're saying that if you're kind of talking not that I'm saying having sex with a chicken is decadent, but like a descent into decadence kind of thing.
Like pursuing pure expedient pleasure or
Right.
hedonism,
Mm-hmm.
and that's all you do. I mean, if everyone did that, we wouldn't get too far.
Right. So I guess that's what he's saying. Like, so the elephant, the emotive, intuitive animal thing, generally, if something like a human response is fast and automatic, then like putting your hand on a stove, like a hot stove, and pulling it off immediately, that kind of thing tends to be evolved if it's fast and automatic and easy. So then you have like this override, like then like after the fact, you've got this like person who's trying to describe why you did that. Yeah, so I think that's what keeps going over and over in my head is that we like feel first and rationalize second.
That's a really interesting insight. We feel first and rationalize second, but we think that we're rationalizing the whole time.
Right. Like I think he gives an example of his wife telling him to like, why'd you leave your shoes or why'd you leave the dirty dishes on the table instead of putting them in the dishwasher kind of thing. And he says he immediately comes up with this story that he's like, oh, I had the recycling in my hand. And when I went out and came back in, I thought I heard the dog getting into the garbage. So I kicked off my shoes and like threw the stuff down or whatever. And he's like immediately confabulating, like making up this story when like he really was just feeling like I'm not wrong kind of thing, like this sort of gut reaction.
Yeah. So his gut reaction was, I didn't do anything wrong. His gut reaction was get defensive. And then immediately, subconsciously, he started justifying.
Yes, exactly. And I think he calls it the press secretary for
Yeah.
yourself, which I think is really funny. Like, because when he said that, all I thought was like Mike Pence kind of thing. Um, it's just like I say something or like I feel something, and then like I'm just rationalizing it to myself, even if it's like completely wrong or like just like obviously not true.
So
Yeah. So
if we went back to that example with the man who had sex with the chicken, would you change your answer if it was a dead human body?
well, then that's
Let's
the other. That's
let's
like
say he
the
had let's just like paint the picture a little bit more. Let's say he had a friend who said like, after I die, you can have sex with my body. And then he died and like but he came over to his house and had sex with his body and then like called the cops and got rid of the body or something. Like, did he do
right.
anything wrong then?
Um, I still don't think so. I think like that's like a it's grotesque and like really messed up, but it was also consensual. Like I can't remember if it's from the book or because I often bring this question up of the German cannibal police officer guy.
Oh yeah, man, you've told me this story before. It's pretty funny. Well, it's not, but
Yeah.
you tell it well.
So like the there's this guy and he's like messing around on cannibal forums online and basically gets in touch with this guy or so I've heard, gets in touch with this guy who's like, hey, like my fetish is I really want to like kill and eat somebody. And this guy's like, well, don't you know it? Like, that's the opposite of mine. I want to be killed and eaten. So they end up getting in touch, and they film the guy who's about to be killed and eaten films a thing saying, I consent to this happening in detail. The guy ends up cutting off his dick and eating it. The guy whose dick was cut off goes and into the bathtub to bleed out. He's not dying fast enough, so then the cannibal basically either cuts his throat or stabs him with a screwdriver or something. And then over the next like several months, consumes the rest of the body. And then he gets caught, and then there's this weird legal proceeding of like, did this guy do anything wrong? And he got put in jail, but I don't think it was for like as long as you'd expect.
Wow. That's a really interesting moral case, or actually a legal case.
Yeah.
There'd be no precedent for that legally.
No.
That they
None.
could base it on.
None.
I mean, that couldn't possibly have happened before.
I hope not.
Oh, man, that's tough. Like, he definitely didn't do anything. I don't think he did anything wrong legally. Unless the person gave consent under duress. But if it was obvious that he wasn't giving consent under duress, it seems like he didn't do anything wrong legally, although I'm not a legal expert.
Yeah, I think they pinned him for desecration of a human corpse or something.
In a general sense, like, you're not even allowed to give consent for your corpse to be desecrated.
Think about it. If I want to be born, like, I know, if I want to be burned on a pyre like the heathen kings of old kind of thing, I'm not allowed to do that. Like, I actually don't have say over my body when I'm dead, really.
Yeah, so there's limits to what you can do with your body after you're dead, or what you can consent to. Society comes in and says, this is desecration of a human corpse if you want something too extreme to happen to you after you die.
Yeah, which I think is bullshit, but that's...
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. I
is.
think you should be able to have anything done.
Like, if I want to be like mummified and like taxidermied to like stand in the corner of my like mansion for the rest of time, like, why can't I do that? Like,
well, you should be able to. You should be able to. I guess the weak point, the breakdown, or the bottleneck in the legal system would be, how do you prove that you didn't give consent under duress? Although, yeah. I mean, we just treat legal documents as if they represent a person, like a sane person's opinion. So why should it be any different if you say that you want to be killed and eaten?
I guess there's the rub, because then you can be like, no sane person would want this.
Then our definition of sanity might need to be updated.
That one definitely is. That one's tricky. That one's tricky, but I don't think they did anything wrong. It was just whatever two consenting adults do in their own home is none of my business.
Yeah, I think that's just an example of the extremes of what people can do as individuals and how much it can differ from what the average person wants.
Well, yeah. I think like there's probably so many subcultures of stuff out there that I would probably find horrifying. Like, it's unending. Like, human depravity is unending.
And so at what point would you say they're doing something wrong? Like, is there at some point in the descent of human depravity that you would say they're doing something morally wrong? Like, would your sanctity degradation foundation get activated at some point?
I don't think I have one, honestly.
Well, our results from yourmorals.com, which we'll talk about later, are going to be totally different then.
Yeah, I think so. I think as long as they're like not bugging anybody, they should just be able to do whatever they want.
Was it, I could have the wrong name here, but was it Plato that said if an action would be bad for everybody to commit, then an individual shouldn't commit that action? That's a good way to judge if something is right or wrong. Like, would it be bad if everyone did it? Was that Plato?
I am not sure.
Either way, do you agree with that? Because, I mean, at a certain point down the spiral of degradation, it would just be horrible for everybody to do it.
Right. I think, no, I don't think I agree with that. I think that, like, just as, let's say, like, in a capitalist kind of framework, you're going to need workers and you're going to need owners, right? I think in any moral society, you're going to need the extremely moral and then the non-extremely moral. I think you've got to have this gradation. If everybody was doing things that everyone thought they should do, like maybe that would make society better, but I'm not sure.
Maybe there's some sort of utility to having a small percentage of the population not being totally moral or not being totally pure.
I definitely think so. I think like the way I like to like think about it, maybe not in morality sense, but you ever like watch Jackass? Like, did you ever watch Jackass back in the day?
Yeah.
So like, there's like a certain population of those, like of human beings that like to do that kind of stuff, that are just like, fuck it, I'm gonna do this crazy thing that is going to hurt me or like could maybe kill me, kind of thing. Like it is necessary for a certain percentage of the human population to be like that. Otherwise, nobody's going to get in a tiny canoe and like follow a star to some island that may or may not be there on the ocean.
Yeah, nobody would ever get in a ship and like explore what's on the other side of this ocean, or get in a spaceship and say, let's go to Mars.
Yeah.
You need that would be like the ultimate Jackass stunt. You need those guys to do stuff like that.
Yeah. And I think you need people to like, sort of explore everything. Like
explore the boundary. Oh, you know what? All boundaries need to be explored.
Definitely. Yeah.
Okay, good argument, man. Good one.
Yeah.
Can I read you another example that I remember from the book?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, a woman is cleaning her house. She's trying to clean her bathroom, her toilet. She can't find a rag, but she ends up finding like an old American flag in her closet. So she cuts it up into little squares and uses it as a rag to clean her toilet. Did she do anything wrong?
No, except maybe be a little lazy. Like she could have went and got something else. But no, I don't think she did anything wrong. I think like it's a symbol, but it's also like 10 cloths. So
yeah, maybe things like that, doing them in private doesn't really matter.
Oh yes, definitely.
Maybe like a destruction of a symbol for some sort of group identity would be wrong in public.
I don't think the book really takes that into account, because you're right. Like if you are just like cutting up American flags on your lawn every day and people are like walking by, you're kind of making a statement, right? But
right.
This person's just, this is a piece of cloth. I'm going to cut it up and use it as a cloth. But when you're cutting it up in public, you're not treating it like just a piece of cloth. You're treating it like a symbol.
Yeah.
I think that's a different thing. I think like someone who saw that flag in their closet and said, this is a symbol of my country, isn't going to cut it up. Someone who saw that and was just like, this is a piece of cloth that just happens to have stars and stripes on it. I need cloth, I'll cut it up and blah, blah, blah. Like, I think that it's kind of like the only people who would do that are the people who don't view it as a symbol kind of thing. And if you're gonna make a statement, you do it in public. You don't do it in private. Yeah. You don't have like a private flag burning party for just yourself.
So the intention matters. Whether you're doing it to desecrate a symbol or to just grab a piece of cloth that happens to have a certain symbol on it, the intention of what you're doing matters.
Right. Yeah. Like
so which foundation would that be? Would that be loyal or authority and subversion?
I think that's probably,
or loyalty, betrayal, perhaps loyalty to your nation.
I think it's sanctity, is it not?
I think it's a couple. I think it activates a couple, but definitely a little bit of sanctity, but maybe some loyalty and betrayal as well, like loyalty to your group.
True. Yeah, no, definitely some loyalty in there.
If you went online and started posting about how like the Beetlejuicy and Blasphemers podcast is a piece of shit podcast, you'd be like totally betraying our group here, you know?
Yeah, like if I made some kind of alias and was just like shit posting about this, like
Yeah, if you took our if you took our icon and made a rag out of it and cleaned your toilet, I would feel betrayed.
okay, I'll keep that in mind. Oh
And that's
man.
what you're doing at a bigger scale in that example.
Right, right. Yeah, you're betraying your whole country. All those pledge allegiance to the flags things you said in public school were lies.
Yeah, they meant nothing.
Yeah, they meant nothing to you. Okay, I think there was one more that I remember. It was about a brother and sister are on a vacation together, and they decided it would be fun to have sex on the beach with each other. So they do it just once. They had fun, and then they don't ever do it again, and that's that. Like, did they do something wrong?
Yeah, and they use protection.
Yeah, they use protection. They both had their tubes tied, say.
They both do. So there's no chance of pregnancy.
There's no chance of pregnancy whatsoever.
I would. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
That
say
one,
yes. I'm gonna say yeah. They did something wrong.
I'm gonna agree with you on that one, actually. Yeah.
Really? Who's the victim?
Yeah. It's that I've gone through it and like I have no explanation for why, but that one's just like that one gets me more than the guy fucking the chicken one.
Because there's more than one person. Oh, maybe because there's multiple people involved. So it has some social ramification. Whereas when whatever you do by yourself, it doesn't have a social ramification. Like their
Right.
relationship is going to be changed. Of course, it's only between the two of them.
Mm-hmm.
Although the relationship between them is going to be changed. It might have some unknown psychological harm later in life that they didn't anticipate.
That could be. I think I've heard that same argument for why abortion is wrong as well, though.
Okay.
Maybe. I think like in the question he says they decide to keep it their own little secret and everything goes back to normal and they never do it again. But you're saying there might be some underlying psychological issue that develops later because of what they've done.
But then you could just say hypothetically if there wasn't.
Yeah, but what if there wasn't?
Well, then I guess not. I guess they didn't do anything wrong.
Huh. So you're basing you're basing your things off of like a care harm thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although this also is obviously the sanctity degradation one.
Right, right.
I think I'm inclined to say that they did something wrong. It's not really obvious to justify though.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, I think any of the sanctity degradation ones are hard to justify.
Yeah,
Like,
because they're actually in the realm of they're actually in the realm of religion. And as soon as you get into that realm, language kind of breaks down.
yeah,
And you start invoking religious language.
exactly.
And then you're not in the realm of pure logic and rationality anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, so I think like even the flag thing, you can only say why that's wrong by appealing to being like because it's a symbol of freedom or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You end up with this reduction to just it's just wrong.
Uh-huh. Even though I think it has some drawbacks, the whole theory, I think like one of the biggest, most redeeming, like the biggest positives from this book is that he concludes a lot about balance and how he thinks we should like reason with another across party lines, kind of like a yin and yang thing, or like a left brain, right brain of like a giant social organism. And he talked a lot about how there's less and less friendships that bridge party lines nowadays than in the past. Yeah, I think that's like a big plus from his sort of like conclusion.
Yeah, the book makes a good argument for incorporating viewpoint diversity. Why viewpoint diversity is important.
Yes. Yeah. And like I think that like he's kind of hitting on something true there when you look at if you look at the States or Canada and we kind of do these flip-flops back and forth between like conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal, conservative, liberal. Like we just like are flipping between the two and it's kind of like an ebb and flow that is kind of necessary.
Yeah, because the correct path forward is somewhere in the middle. So we're constantly, the two poles need to constantly be talking, communicating to find the correct path forward for that moment in time.
Well, I'm not even sure that there's necessarily a place in the middle. I think that it might be one of those things where it's like, if there was like some middle party that was just like down the middle of the road, then we would expect it to be there all the time. But I think it's this like back and forth flip flop thing. It's kind of like, know when to speed up, know when to slow down, or like you've been spending a lot of money, time to save, stuff like that. Like instead of just like spending the same amount of resources or stuff all the time, like in the middle, they'll say like the liberals spend a lot of money and then the conservatives sort of balance the budget, and then they spend money, balance budget, spend money, balance budget, just as like a simplified example. But it may, like if you get into the moral or social territory, then the liberals are like, let's push forward for progressive things, and a lot of the population is like, yeah, things need to change. Like they feel like there's this kind of, we've been stagnating for a while, and then that sort of goes on, and you get to this point where people are like, whoa, things are crazy and out of control, and then they're like, we need to like lock this shit down for a little bit, and then the conservatives come in power, and then they're sort of making sure that we got like this sort of sense of safety and security, and making sure that the working class is back, like is doing what it needs to do with the freedom that it has, kind of thing.
Very well put. I agree. Yeah, it's an ebb and flow. Kind of like a gas pedal and a brake pedal.
Yeah, I mean that's how I kind of think
There's
about
times
it.
to press both.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing that is maybe hard to sort of, or not hard, but like that you don't hear very often, is the like, oh, we've elected some liberals, so this is what's going to happen, and then after that, like there's like kind of like this feeling within parties that it's like, if everyone was just this way and we did this all the time, then the world would be perfect. Where I
Yeah.
think that if we can acknowledge that both, like if you adjust the one party of either side, things would just like be awful. So you need that flip flop to make things livable.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this mentality where it's like, once our party gets in, they're just going to be in forever, and then everything's going to be great.
Yeah.
Or like if everybody on the other side just like came to their senses and came to our side, it'd be great. Of course, all that would do is like shift the spectrum over, right?
Yeah.
There'd be like a new right and a new left that were just like moved over proportionally.
Right. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like it would just be like phase shifted one way.
Yes, phase shifted.
Yeah.
I have one more. Actually, I made up a moral
Oh
dilemma.
yeah. Let's hear it.
Okay, I think it's going to touch on some other foundations.
Okay.
Okay, so you go to a birthday party, and somebody gives you a present. It's your birthday. You have a birthday party, okay? Somebody comes over and gives you a present. You open it. It's a sweater that you don't really like that much. It fits you fine. You just don't really like the color of it. So you say thank you very much. You pretend that you love it, and then as soon as you go home, you just throw it in the garbage can. Maybe your grandmother gave it to you.
Oh no. Oh no.
Yeah. Did you do anything wrong?
I mean, I would feel extremely guilty.
What does the elephant tell you?
The elephant tells me, like, I've been in this kind of situation where, like, but instead of throwing it out immediately, I just hang on to it for like 6 months and never wear it.
I've done that too. Like, not necessarily throw it out, but like keep it for 6 months because you think you're supposed to, and then eventually admit, I don't really want this. I'm never going to use it, and then like give it away or get rid of it.
Yeah.
Like, but why? But why not just cut right to the chase?
Because, yeah, if nobody knows, I don't know. I don't know why. Like, what part of that is like bothering me? Maybe it feels like I'm like being unfair or like not great, like ungracious or ungrateful. Honestly, I think that one, that's a good one. That's dumbfounded me.
Yeah, because it's a little bit like fairness or cheating, because I think fairness and cheating encapsulates honesty. There isn't a foundation that's called like honesty and deception.
Right.
But that's kind of involved here. Of course, the only reason that you would say that you loved the sweater or something is to make the person who gave it to you feel good.
Right. So that's like a
And
care harm kind of thing.
yeah, and then they have no idea that if you know for sure you're never going to wear it and you just get rid of it right away, I mean, they never find out. It's no different than if you had kept it and worn it in private a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
From their point of view, they have no idea whether you wore it in private a bunch of times or just got rid of it.
Right. That's why getting someone pajamas is really like a safe bet, because they could just throw them right out and you'd never know. You'd be none the wiser.
Yeah, from your point of view, the two situations are identical.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so have you like cheated? Have you cheated this person by implying to them that you loved it when you didn't? I mean, should you just say, I hate this, and be honest?
No.
No.
I think that you're touching on something. Like I think that that one that you've done is definitely not. I don't think you can use the 6 that are there to describe it.
Did I discover a new taste bud?
I think you might have. And like I think there's a fair amount of psychologists out there that are like, yeah, this is a great starting point. And even some of the proponents of this moral foundations theory thing themselves, they say like, you know, like I want to encourage like to like look for new foundations, like do research, prove that there are more. Because this was like all sort of off a couple different surveys and things, right? I mean, maybe it has something. One of the main drawbacks that I was reading about was saying that this moral foundations theory doesn't have a lot of stuff that applies to altruism. So like doing something that you don't want to do, but like is better for the group. And maybe that's a case of that. Like you're doing it to be like, I'm fitting in with, I'm like showing the group that I have accepted this. It is great. That other person now feels good, even though I feel a little guilty. I'm just spitballing here. I have no idea.
My intuition on it is actually that it's not wrong, but I don't really put a ton of weight on like societal norms, and I never have.
Mm-hmm.
So when I did those questionnaires that we'll talk about maybe next, it showed me that I didn't put a lot of weight on like things that are just moral because they're normal in society. I put more I put more, as you can guess, on the sanctity thing. So just going through like social norms for the sake of them, I just don't put a lot of emphasis on that.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really strike me as wrong to be like, oh, thank you, and then just get rid of it.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yeah, it's almost like we're all pressured to go through these social norms. I don't know what I'm trying to say. It's like everyone's pressured to do it, so you just kind of have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then once it's over, it's over. You know?
Right. So you could just throw it out like immediately.
Yeah.
I'll do that with birthday cards.
Oh, I keep those.
What?
Yeah, because I mean, they don't take up much. Yeah, they don't take up very much space, and like you can read them again years later, and that's kind of nice. But like a big physical object that takes up space, if you're never going to use it, you might as well just get rid of it.
Oh.
Yeah, so maybe we have different intuition on that. You throw out birthday cards?
Yeah, I have like a box up till when I was like maybe 13 or 14. And then ever since then, I've just like thrown them right out. Just like, I'm like, what am I going to do with these?
Well, let's hope your family doesn't listen to this.
Yeah, no, they know. I think they know.
All right.
Yeah, immediately in the garbage. So
yeah,
like,
well, we differ on that one, I guess.
So you did the Moral Foundations results?
Yeah, so there's a website called yourmorals.org. You can make an account there and then there must be about 20 different surveys on there about a whole bunch of different things, like gratitude questionnaire, the creativity scale, positive emotion scale, and you can take them and you can see how you rank just against everybody else. So your score is basically just going to show you how you rank against the other 10,000 people who took it.
Mm-hmm.
So we've both taken. Did you take the one called Theories of Morality?
I took that one as well. Yeah.
Okay, so we've both taken the one called Theories of Morality and one called Moral Foundations Questionnaire.
Yep.
So let's compare our results on the Theories of Morality.
Yeah, that's the brown and green and orange one, right? Or did you get different colors?
I got brown, green, and orange.
Okay,
So
nice.
there's 5 theories of morality: emotional experience, norms, like societal norms, religious principles, benevolent consequences, and malicious intentions. And this questionnaire is supposed to judge how much you rank each of those things in terms of importance when you're making moral decisions. And it actually gives you your own ranking, and then it gives you the ranking of the average male and the average female. So this one, the first one, emotional, does it for you go in the order that I just read?
Yes.
On your graph? Okay,
yes,
so the first one is emotional experience. It says males rank 4.2 and females 4.8. So females are on average slightly higher. I actually ranked high on this, 6.0 I got.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I was exactly the same as the females, 4.8.
Okay. So I think those ones were questions like, when you're doing something, it's important if you feel like you're doing the right thing, or if you feel guilty about something afterward, you shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. Yeah, like feeling like how important is it that like you feel like what you're doing is right?
Yeah. So I put a lot of weight on like your intuition, like kind of like your daemon or your connection to nature, which I think is like your conscience. I think you should listen to it. I think it guides you.
That's good. That makes sense. Mine were like, so for the next one, norm standards.
Yeah.
What are the males? They're brown.
2.9.
2.9 and 3.2 for the females. I got 3.4.
I got 1.6.
So you don't care about the norms. Well, that makes sense about throwing the sweater right in the fucking garbage.
Yeah. I say thank you very much, and then I jump through the hoops that you're supposed to jump through, and then after that I don't put any more emphasis on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And what did you say you got?
I got 3.4.
Okay, so you're actually higher than the average, both the average male and the average female. So that's why you would have trouble throwing the sweater out.
Yes.
Yeah, you would dump your birthday cards in the garbage.
Yeah. I think like, I feel like it's normal to like keep something that you don't like for a while and then throw it out later when you're like purging.
Yeah.
But maybe that's just my experience.
I did that a lot, and I think it's because I moved so much. That's the only reason. That's the only reason that I have so little patience for physical objects. Cards don't take up much room, right? Just like paper.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe I'll start keeping them again.
Whatever feels right.
It does feel kind of wrong.
The next one is religious principles. Both males and females are the same here, 2.5. Mine was surprisingly high, 3.8.
Oh, wow. Mine was a 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
I actually feel like this doesn't accurately represent me. I might have answered something. I think if I did it again, I would have answered a little bit differently on these questions, because I don't feel like I put that much emphasis on religious principles.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you do either. But maybe it's more of like you shouldn't do something because it's unnatural.
Yeah, or maybe it's that we shouldn't just throw out ancient wisdom. Like there might be something worth keeping in there, even if it's not obvious, which I do think.
True. What's the next one stand for? Benevolent consciousness?
I believe it's benevolent consequences.
Yeah, doing something which makes people, that benefits people.
Yeah, benevolent consequences, which is the idea that thoughts or actions are immoral when they do not result in positive outcomes for other people. So I guess it's kind of like a utilitarianism, like only the outcome matters.
What'd you get on that?
4.8.
Okay, I got a 5.8. And the average is 5.1 for males and 5.4 for females.
Yeah. So I guess that means that you're kind of utilitarian, meaning for you the outcome is very important. Intention or like the feeling you have while you're doing it is less important. It's just the outcome.
Yeah, definitely. I think like you can like imagine like volunteering for a place that is like, you know, the work you're volunteering for, you kind of regret volunteering for because it's really grueling or gross or something. And then like you're like, ugh, I hate this. But then like the outcome is like some people get like a house built or something who like couldn't afford it otherwise.
Yeah.
Then like you've done something moral even though it felt gross or felt bad. Or like telling someone like, hey, I'm really concerned about your weight or your drinking or something, like for like your own health. It feels bad to like say that to somebody because you feel like you're like, oh, like I really don't want to do this but I have to. And then like the outcome might be like good, like the like it's good to do but you feel bad about doing it.
I think you feel uncomfortable doing it, but you probably feel meaningful while you're doing it.
Maybe. I think like in those kind of situations, like I think often there's like a should that is in there, that like you should do something even if you don't feel like it.
Okay.
And like that is kind of what I'm getting at. Like if it's going to help somebody, then you should do it. And if it's not going to help somebody, you shouldn't, regardless of like what your personal feelings are.
Okay. How do you get in touch with what you should and shouldn't do? How do you know? Like, is there a gut feeling inside of you?
Um,
Or do you need to have a moral philosophy to determine right and wrong?
I think it probably goes both. Probably goes both ways. Like you could have like a moral philosophy that says, you know, you should do X, and then you come across it and you're like, ugh, like I don't want to do that. And then
Yeah.
you're like, no, 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 you should do it. And then you do it, and you're like, well, I didn't really enjoy that, but I'm glad that X, Y, Z or something.
Okay. I think like even if something doesn't feel good while you're doing it, if you dig deeper, you uncover a more profound emotion that will give you like a sense of meaning. You won't want to do it in the moment, but if you're really honest with yourself, you'll know that it makes you feel like you're doing something right.
Right.
And to me, that feeling is the closest thing we have to a moral compass, like getting
Mm-hmm.
in touch with that sense of meaning that transcends whether you're enjoying it in the moment or not.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's a difference between us. Why I seem to have a higher emphasis on like the experience of doing it and less even on than the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
Like
But
individuals have a duty to fulfill that is more important than the outcome.
I see what
So
you're
even
saying.
like a world where like the outcome is actually a little bit less, like if you were judging it on like pure well-being or something, a
Mm-hmm.
world where the outcome of well-being is actually less, but everybody is fully actualized and like living according to their conscience, I think maybe it would be better, which
Hmm.
is a hard thing to argue, but I think it might be.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any response to that.
Yeah, I just think like maybe that's like I'm understanding that that might be where our intuitions differ.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the
Interesting.
last one here is malicious intention.
Yeah.
Males 5.1, females 5.5. So I'll just read the sentence that it says here. Malicious intention, which is the idea that thoughts or actions are immoral if they arise from harmful intentions, such
Uh,
as
so
jealousy or hate.
so it's kind of the opposite of benevolent consideration, or whatever that meant, whatever that's for.
That was benevolent consequences. It wasn't like
Consequences.
consideration. It was like, I
Oh, I
think that
see.
was outcome and this one is intention.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, so I got 6.5 on this one. How did you get?
Oh, I only got 4.8.
So if somebody is doing something and they're trying to do something evil, but they accidentally do something good,
Yeah.
that's overall a good thing. Overall,
Yeah.
still a moral thing.
Yeah. I guess so.
Like if you're, I'm trying to think of an example right now.
Like someone who's like, um, like it's kind of comical to think about, like someone
Like if
who's
you're
like,
trying to kill like if you want to just randomly kill someone and you accidentally kill the next Hitler.
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't
you
know.
never
That's
know.
we can
I
probably come up
think
with a better example than that.
like you like are gonna like you just like want to randomly punch someone in the knee, and you're like walking around the street at night, and there's this like old man hobbling by, so you like punch him in the knee, and then he like falls down and like gets back up, and he's like, oh my god, my arthritis is gone. And he's like, thank you, kind sir, thank you, here's $100. And like that would be a good action to have done.
Oh, yeah, but how is that a good thing to do, man? Like, okay, that's a really funny example, but I think that kind of I'm going to say that that really puts the finger right on where we differ.
Mm. I think maybe I'm thinking about it more in the opposite, where like you can have good intentions and it can be poor. Like it
True.
can be immoral. Like
Yeah, like you can donate to like certain charities that end up doing more harm than good.
right. Like there's that one, it was called something like merry-go-round wells or
Yeah, the water
something.
pump wells. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, where like basically they just like made it harder to like pump water after they were installed, and like
it
the
was supposed to
government.
be for kids were going to play on it, and it was going to pump water or generate electricity, one of those two at the same
Yeah,
time, and then they didn't end up using it, and then it just ended up being a big pain, and then like adults just started walking around spinning these merry-go-rounds
yeah, and
and like wasting all their effort, and it was a total pain.
yeah, it took like longer and it took more effort to get the same amount of water as like a just regular hand pump. And
Yeah,
they like installed them all over Africa.
so that was an example of good intentions having, less than ideal results
Yes.
and overall being bad. And I would
Correct.
agree with that, because maybe there's just a level of like incompetence that if you go beyond it, you're just doing something bad.
Hmm. Yeah, like I think, yeah, I actually don't know. Like I don't remember any of the questions on that thing that would have made me score higher or lower. Wait, what did you score on the malicious intention thing?
6.5. I think they literally just said like, oh, it was a lot about cruelty. It was like,
Ah,
cruelty, consideration of cruelty is important in morality. It was something like that. It was very direct.
mm-hmm.
And I wrote that it was bad because I think if you're being cruel, it's like that's just pure evil. Like being
Right.
more harmful than is even necessary. Like if you're doing something that might hurt someone a little bit and it's just a necessary evil, okay. But if you're just like hurting somebody just for the sake of it, that's where cruelty is. So I don't know. I said that was bad.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why I jacked my score up.
I agree with you there. I think I responded the same way, so I don't know what the hell that's all about.
This study wasn't like it didn't have a lot of questions, and honestly, if I took this again tomorrow, I might get something different. So
Hmm.
it wasn't. I'm going to say that it wasn't a very rigorous study.
Yeah, yeah, I would agree. So that was the last one. Do you want to talk about your moral foundation ones?
Yeah. So the other quiz was moral foundations. It actually just has 5. It doesn't. It's missing one of the ones that we talked about before. This one just has harm versus care, fairness versus reciprocity,
It's
in
missing
group.
the liberty oppression.
Yeah. And then it
Okay.
has in group versus loyalty, authority versus respect, and purity versus sanctity.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so this one compares your score with the average liberal score and the average conservative score.
And yeah, like, do you want to say who you scored closest to?
I don't, it's not obvious for me. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, like for the harm one, what are you sitting at?
2.7.
So you are below both both the liberals and the conservatives for the Care versus Harm Foundation.
Yes, apparently I don't care at all about caring for or harming people. There's nothing wrong with harming people, apparently.
Yeah, yeah.
And
No,
you, how did you score?
I was pretty much exactly, I was 3.7, so exactly like your typical liberal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So liberal was 3.7, conservative was 3.1, and then there's me, 2.7. So here's an example, though, of liberals typically scoring higher on the Care Harm Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the next one, fairness, is kind of the same. It's liberal is 3.8, conservative 3.1. So the averages were about the same. I was
Yeah.
2.5. How about you?
I was again 3.8.
Okay, so I didn't. You put a lot more emphasis on fairness than I did.
Yeah, I guess so.
Why do you think fairness is so important? Or do you? Do you think it's accurate?
Oh, I think it's accurate. I think I can like nitpick about fairness, but everyone like I think like basically I want to do it from a first principles kind of thing where it's like everyone should have an equal start, like an equal opportunity, not an equal start, but an equal opportunity to go. And then I think we have a social obligation to get people to the finish line so that they can go. And I think we need that kind of fairness to have a proper society that's like a true meritocracy.
What's the difference between equal opportunity and equal start?
Oh, geez. I think I might not be the best person to talk to about this, but my understanding is that so like
Maybe
I guess
equal
like
opportunity is about the legality, like everyone's equal under the law, nobody can discriminate, for example. But equal start is more like the hand that you happen to get dealt with in terms of the family that you're born to and
exactly.
like the health of the body that you're born into, for example.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you know, I have less of a chance of getting into like Yale Law School than someone whose father and grandfather went to Yale Law School.
And you think that that shouldn't be the case?
I don't think that should be the case. No.
Okay.
Yeah. I think like this, so like, I don't know if you've heard me go on like angry rants about like how everything should be a public school and private schools should be abandoned. Like that taps into this. Like, I don't think one school system should be given more or different than another. I think the public school system should be the only school system.
Okay.
Because when you've got like these private schools that are getting directly funded by the parents who are rich or like, you know, they're like, I want my child to have the best, as every parent does. But then they're like dumping all this money into a private school. They're only helping their child and maybe their child's classmates, rather than if their kid was by law had to go to a public school and they were like, I want my child to have the best education possible, and they dumped that same amount of money, that school would they would benefit everybody.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if I have anything to say to
that. So you had like less of a fairness kind of thing?
Yeah, I think I might have been like mixing like equal start and equal opportunity altogether.
Right.
I think we should definitely strive to create equality of opportunity, but at the same time, nature is inherently unfair.
True.
So if we put our emphasis on trying to make everything as fair as possible, we're literally fighting nature. And the second, like we're swimming upstream, the second we stop, we'll just float back downstream again. Like you can't fight nature. And nature is inherently unfair. So that doesn't mean that we shouldn't, I guess that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. I think that my score on this one maybe doesn't quite represent how I really think when I'm talking. I think I might have just answered one or two questions a certain way, and then it gave me a really low score.
Yeah, it could be. I'd like to do it again too.
Yeah, no, I think we should strive for equality of opportunity. So if one person is just born really disadvantaged, we should maybe disproportionately allocate resources toward them. Not in an attempt to create equality of outcome, but in an attempt to create equality of opportunity.
Yeah. And I think everyone across the political spectrum will agree with that.
Yeah, like try your best to get everybody like starting the same, and then if they end up in different places, that's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Which I think like it's a long journey, but we're getting there.
Okay, so the next one, loyalty. Liberals said 2.1 and conservatives said 3.1. So this is where liberals and conservatives differ quite a bit.
Yeah.
What'd you get?
I got a 2.
I got a 3.3.
Cool. So you value loyalty to your group a lot.
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
And you don't.
I would say, yeah, I think I have like loyalty to certain groups, but I think maybe my circle is a little smaller. Like I don't think I can get that whole countrywide thing. Like I don't think I can get the city. Like I feel like I've got like a very localized loyalty.
Like
Is
maybe
that
just to like a couple friends and like an intimate relationship.
yeah, yeah.
But to your country, it's like you just happen to be born in a certain country. You may or may not agree with what the country's doing at large. You don't have an obligation to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think maybe on a large scale, that's how I feel. Like you don't pick your country. Like if you did, it would make more sense to have loyalty to it. But just because you're born in a certain place doesn't mean that you necessarily agree with it.
Yeah.
Although once you get in with a certain group, you have obligations to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the honesty kind of if where would you put honesty and deception? I would probably put it on this foundation, loyalty. Where would you put it?
Yes. Same.
Okay, so I value honesty really highly. I think you should almost always tell the exact truth. So maybe that's why my score is a bit higher here.
Well, if there's anything I learned from this book is that if you do something and then tell why you did it, you might not be telling the truth. You might just be justifying it.
Um,
Why'd you do that? Because, and then you create something. It's
but
like
you might think you're telling the truth.
you might think you're telling the truth, but I think that's what I keep going over and over in that in my head. I'm like, why do people do stuff? Because they just do. And then it's like, if you like, why do people do stuff if you ask them? Because they have reasons. We're kind of like just we're not piloting these meat bodies. These meat bodies are like just doing stuff, and we're like describing after the fact why.
Yeah, like we're sitting in a movie theater watching life happen and then
Mhm.
thinking that it's a video game, but really it's a movie.
Yeah, it's like, why did I just eat that whole bag of Doritos? And then like the body's like, because I wanted, like just because, like there is no reason.
Yeah,
Like you
it
just
was
did
just
it.
a natural instinct that took over.
Uh-huh. And then yeah, the natural instinct to eat Doritos.
Nothing is
roaming
more
the,
natural than eating
yeah,
Doritos.
naked, roaming the African savannah, like picking off the Dorito tree, munching one, moving on,
Yeah,
never staying
grabbing
in
a
more
bag
than
of
one
Doritos
place.
off the tree, and then just pouring the crumbs right out of the bag into your mouth. It doesn't get more natural than that.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Wiping the crumbs on your hairy body. Small birds follow you to eat the crumbs. Oh man.
All right.
Okay. Authority. What did you get on that?
Okay, so first of all, liberals 2.1, conservatives 3.3. So conservatives value authority
Mm-hmm.
higher. I got 3.0 right in the middle.
Cool. I got a 0.7.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
why do you think that you scored so low?
Oh, I think I've always had problems with authority. Like up until this point, I have matched liberals perfectly, like within like a point, like a
Yeah,
decimal point. And then this one, I'm like, oh geez.
this
I
is
just
a libertarian foundation.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay, so you're like a liberal libertarian.
yeah. I
Okay.
think so. I think so, and I think that's why like the chicken thing doesn't bother me very much because like people should just be allowed to do whatever they want if it doesn't hurt anybody. And then if someone's telling me like you're not allowed to do something, and if I'm like, yeah, but it's not hurting anybody, like I get disproportionately upset. Like even if it's reasonable, like if some like even if it's reasonable, like recently my downstairs neighbor put a very polite note saying like you're getting up like at 5:30 and you're like stomping around, and it's an old house. So could you please maybe put some carpets down or like walk a little lighter? And I was like, I was really struggling because on one hand, I'm like, that's a totally reasonable request. I didn't realize I was stomping. I can like try and, lighten my footsteps. We're going to buy some carpets. But then on the other hand, I'm like, don't fucking tell me what to do. Like, I can do whatever I want. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So when authority figure tells you, well, is that even authority?
It's an impingement. It's
On your
being petty
freedoms.
on my freedoms. Yeah, is what it feels like.
Okay. I always thought that I was a libertarian, and then when I was answering these questions, I realized to have a system that works properly, you have to be able to defer to competent leadership. If leadership is completely distributed, you're not really going to move collectively in one direction. So you have to there's times where you might not agree with the leader, but you just do it anyway, because you put more emphasis on the collective good and the direction that you're moving as a society or as a unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the leadership becomes incompetent, that's when you dissent. True.
And I think that's probably why I have like a 0.7 and not a complete 0. For instance, I have like a lot of respect for my supervisor at Carleton and like stuff like that. Like I will defer to authority if I believe that they are correct and like agree with them, kind of thing, or that they have like proven to me that they deserve to be the authority, you know.
Through competency.
Through competency, yes. So, I mean, I don't think I could be a scientist without having some kind of belief in authority, but also a freedom to challenge that authority as well.
Yeah. This questionnaire is not robust, so it was like maybe 15 questions.
Yeah.
I think I scored high because I just assumed that the authority is competent and like deserves respect.
Right, and I guess I just assumed that the authority is incompetent and deserves to be questioned.
Yeah, in which case if that was the case, I would probably also get a 0.7.
Okay, I'm interested to see what you got for your purity one. So like the liberals have 1.5 and the conservatives...
Sorry, go ahead.
And the conservatives have 3.0. So 1.5, the conservatives are twice as likely to value purity.
Okay, I'm going to try to guess yours.
Okay.
0.5.
It's very close. It's very close. I got a 0.
Actual 0?
I got an actual flat line on that one, yeah.
So you answered you answered on like the extreme not important on all of those questions.
I must have, yeah.
Okay, what do you think I got?
I'm going to say you got like a 2.
I got a 4.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I think we found the meat of our disagreement here. You got a 0 and I got a 4.
So like you value like, you know, like you don't want to degrade things.
No, specifically one question on this questionnaire said something like, it's wrong, or maybe it said immoral, to do disgusting things even if you're alone and no one will find out. And I said yes.
I said absolutely not.
I think I said, I don't think I said like absolutely yes. I said like the somewhat yes.
Uh-huh. I said, if you're all by yourself, you can do whatever disgusting things you want.
Well, yeah, you can, but should you? I mean, you have to, hey, you got to look in the mirror at the end of the day.
Yeah, if it doesn't bother you at all.
How do you feel after, let's say you do something disgusting and then you look at yourself in the mirror, or you go to bed and you know that moment right before you fall asleep when like you can't lie to yourself anymore and you just like, you did that thing. And then you in that moment, you just can't like keep up the lie that it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like just looking at yourself in the mirror, like you have to come to terms with whatever you did, right? Whatever disgusting things you do every time you close that door. And I can't do, like, I'm not good at like doing disgusting things. I guess I have like a high shame response.
See, I think that's something that like I've talked to people before about, is like I have been disgusted maybe a handful of times in my life. And like
you can count it on one hand.
I can count it on one hand, yeah. I think the first time I was truly disgusted, was butchering a like 4-day old dead, like a 4-day dead cow in the winter. And then when the person stuck the knife in, it deflated and all this like putrefied gas shot out and like hit me. That was one. The second was I was working at a restaurant and we were serving, we were shucking oysters. And then I looked down at this oyster and there was a bulbous see-through crab with like a giant body and tiny legs that was writhing around. And that was the second time.
That you were desensitized.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't think I think that's it. Actually, like the crab thing still gets me every now and then.
I think those are things that are pretty orthogonal to morality.
The disgust?
Yeah. You know, there's disgust of like, oh, that smells really bad. And then there's disgust in like, I don't know if I can live with myself after this, you know?
Oh,
Like those are different things.
I guess I've never felt disgusted in a moral sense with
Like
myself.
what if you like I don't know, what if you were just like on a whim, you decided to just like test your moral intuitions and like actually no, this isn't disgust though. This is like fairness. I was gonna say like you just like stole somebody's wallet and like
Mhm.
spent all the money like just to see how it made you feel, and then you would just felt guilty for a really long time until you confessed and made it right. Um,
Well, I guess the thing is like maybe it's not about personally feeling disgusted with yourself, but like looking at somebody else doing something disgusting.
okay.
But like even then, if they're not harming anybody,
I think we're using different definitions of disgust here. I think I'm
hmm,
using it to mean shame, and you're using it as like physical repulsion.
I guess so.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with like seeing uh, a, like a rotting corpse be butchered. Like that's not morally wrong. It's just like repulsive and disgusting. And
Hmm.
I'm just thinking like the emotion of guilt and shame. I'm kind of conflating that with disgust.
Hmm.
So I'm actually, you know what? I'm actually not thinking clearly about this because I'm just like taking all the other moral foundations and then saying if you do something wrong according to them, you feel bad, and then I'm calling that degradation or disgust.
Right. Well, I guess like yeah. So this is like the purity degradation one, right? I don't really know what degradation means. I guess like like what is it? What is something that degrades purity? Putting graffiti on a church or something would be one.
I've talked to people who said that they're ex-Christians, so they have like a couple Bibles that like their parents gave them when they were children, and
Right,
then
but they
later on
can't
in
like
life,
throw them out.
yeah, they just can't throw them out. It would feel wrong.
Hmm. Well, I guess like I have a Bible here. I can't throw that out. But is that degradation? Like I have a hard time throwing out books.
Just because you think there's something special about books.
I guess, yeah. Huh.
All right, well,
Yeah,
we're having a breakdown maybe of definitions here.
I think so. I think like the purity degradation thing is hard for me to comprehend, and maybe my own like non-comprehension of it resulted in me getting a zero, or maybe it's that
Oh,
I
I got an idea. I got an idea.
okay.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No,
What
go
about
for it.
like personal hygiene? Like, do you think it's morally wrong to like not take a shower for a month and just stay inside your own apartment?
No. No, I don't think so.
Okay, I think that might be sort of getting toward it.
I see. I
I
see.
think it's just better. I think it's just better to take a shower and be clean and clean your environment and like take care of yourself. Even though it's totally orthogonal to morality, it's just like or morality in terms of affecting other people. But
Right.
still, you should just do it. Like you should just take a shower and clean up your room. You know?
Hmm. I think you just reminded me of one of the questions that he used to probe this in India, where it was there's this sort of custom where the woman who's making food has to remove her clothes after defecating before making food. And like people from India were like, if she doesn't do that, then that's like a huge like purity violation. And then
Yeah.
people in America were like, meh, it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. So that's a good example of differing cultures.
Yeah.
I think we're starting to wind down here, so let's wrap it up.
Yeah, so that was Jonathan Haidt's Righteous Mind. We did a bit of moral dumbfounding, and if you want to learn more, read The Righteous Mind, How Politics and Religion Divide Good People.
Okay, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. If you humans have any questions, comments, complaints, or recommendations for future things to send back to the overlords, please send us an email at beetlejuicyandblasphemers@gmail.com. And thank you for listening.